Welcome to the Simply Joyful podcast with Kristi Clover. And today our special guest is none other than Sally Clarkson. And in fact, this is episode number 100. So get ready to be encouraged.
This is really fun.
So fun. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Sally. It is just such a blessing to have you here.
Well, I love being with you. I can't wait to talk.
I know. So fun. I shared with you and I'll share with the audience, because I was talking with you, I even went and got my fancy teacup with coffee.
There you go. But you know what? It stays hotter in China than it does anything else. So there you go. If you care that it stays hot for at least a little while.
I know. Well, I do the mom iced tea, which is you forget it somewhere and you find it, and there, look, iced tea, or iced coffee.
Yeah, exactly. It's caffeine.
Oh, well, for those in our audience who are unfamiliar with you and your ministry and kind of all the things that you do, can you share a little snapshot of who you are and what you're passionate about?
Okay. I'm Sally, and I have 4 adult children, and I am actually at the moment living in England, and I'm in an English village right now with a couple of my children. You might hear a few little screams in the background. Those would be my grandchildren. I have 4 children. Sarah, who is my oldest, and she is a writer, and she does a lot of speaking, and she graduated from Oxford University with the Master's in Theology. And then there's Joel, and he is finishing his PhD. He's a musician, a composer in St. Andrews in Scotland. And then Nathan is my filmmaker son who lives in New York City, sometimes in LA, also a writer. And we wrote a book called Different together at his suggestion, because he's very different and so am I, and out of the box, so to speak. And then there's Joy, who is my youngest, 3 children, 3 miscarriages. Joy is finishing her PhD at St. Andrews, and she's a podcaster and a writer. And I love the idea of discipleship and really cultivating and just taking out the capacity and the personality of both women and that I've worked with a lot, as well as my children. They were kind of my practice place. So I told them I would send them all to counseling and pay for it if they needed it. But anyway, I've moved 20 times, 9 times internationally. I'm an author, a podcaster, a blogger, a speaker, and I love to cook, walk a lot, and drink a lot of tea and coffee. So that's a little bit.
I know. I'm like, snapshot for Sally Clarkson. This is going to be hard. You have done so much.
I've lived a very long life.
Oh, no. You've lived a very full life, a very blessed, full life. Yes. Oh, well, I am excited because there's so many books that I'm like, ooh, I could pick your brain on all of them, but you did a really great job. Over My Shoulder is your newest book, Awakening Wonder. And what I loved is that you kind of pulled in some of your other books in there. And I was like, oh, yeah. And it just made me want to go back and open up all those books again, because I think I have most of them. I don't think I've read front to cover, right? Front to cover, that didn't make sense. I did at least that. Front to back. But it was kind of fun because I decided to go ahead and just get Audible of, I think, 3 or 4 of your books. And so you've been in my ear for the past couple of weeks, and it's just such an encouragement. So for any of you out there who are not familiar with Sally and her ministry, you have to go check her out. So we'll have all the links below for those watching on YouTube, for those listening in on the podcast, those will be in the show notes. But you have done so much to bless the lives of so many. So on behalf of your audience, thank you.
I love it. It's my privilege. And I would rather write or speak than wash dishes. So maybe that's why I do it.
Well, I think a lot of us would rather do a lot of things than do dishes.
Just want everybody to know, I totally know where you are in life, because your children keep wanting to eat and wear clothes. So.
Yeah, I remember when we first met, it was ages ago, probably it was right before I started the podcast. And I remember just going there, and I wasn't sure what to expect at the event. And so I went to this event, you were speaking and you had some guest speakers. And I just remember there was a moment where you shared about just the realness and how hard life was. And I'm like, amen. Thank you. Because it's easy for people to look at those who are doing what you're doing in ministry, up front, speaking,
Mm-hmm.
writing, podcasting, all that stuff, to look at people who are in that realm and think, oh, they have it so easy. Their life is so perfect.
Oh, yeah.
And
oh my goodness.
so, yeah. And that was before your book Different came out. And that was another one that I downloaded and I started listening to as well. You guys did a fabulous job with that book.
Thank you.
Yeah. But back then you were launching Life Giving Home, and now you have brought in Awakening Wonder. So tell me about wonder and why that became like the theme for this book.
Well, actually, this is my 22nd book. And because I care about, I just wanted to give people real pictures of what it looked like to build a legacy and to inspire their children to have a discipleship ministry. That was my background. I was in missions and in college ministry for a number of years, lived overseas. But my husband and I had written a book on education many, many years ago. And we had written about what to do, how to cultivate a home that really inspires. But I actually, as I was praying about what I wanted to do, I realized that I'm 67 right now, and I had seen many well-intentioned friends and people who had raised their children, but they really focused on the externals, on their SAT scores, their accomplishments, all the activities. And over the past 20, 30 years, I've seen a lot of these kids become disillusioned with Christ, with the church. I've seen many people have fallen away from their faith. They don't like the background in which they were raised. They don't like the homes in which they were raised. And I thought, I just love my audience. I love the women I get a chance to minister to. And I thought, I want to write a book that will kind of take us back out of the box and say, what really matters? What really cultivates a soul? What awakens in a child the imagination of living a great story? And it's not about formula. It's not about following all the voices on the internet. It's so much about very personal, simple applications. So I wanted to write a book that I could say to everyone, please listen, if all you ever do is read this book, I'm going to incorporate kind of a multifaceted view of what it looks like to build the kind of home, relationship, spiritual foundations, educational model that really cooperates with building an organic life, a real life, an authentic life that actually will reach and inspire and cultivate your children to wanting to follow the God that you follow, the virtues that you have, the ways that you live. And so that was what Awakening Wonder is. It's looking at human beings in a whole different way.
I love that. Well, a lot of the audience of the podcast and of the YouTube channel are homeschool families, and we have a lot of families who, in just this day and age, has been recorded in 2020. So if you're watching in 2022, about 2020. And so many families have kind of been thrown into the world of homeschooling, and
Right.
I think have been given this beautiful glimpse, this opportunity. And those of you who are like, beautiful. It can be. There are bad days and hard days.
I agree with you. That's another thing I wanted to say, because I feel like probably the best work of my life. I have earned every gray hair. It isn't easy, but it is worthwhile. And I do think it's beautiful. You're absolutely right to see somebody who grows into their capacity and far exceeds your expectations, and to think you got a chance to be a part of it is really very fulfilling.
Yeah, I would say, like, I always get asked, like, why do you homeschool? But there's like a bazillion. I'm like, well, how long do you have? Like, I can tell you all these reasons why we chose to homeschool. But one of the things that was kind of a blessing is our oldest, he was kind of your typical oldest child. He learned, all his firsts were really early. So he learned to read when he was just kind of in preschool, wasn't officially in school, but there was that moment of when it clicked, I was there. And I think that was something so magical. And that didn't happen with any of my other children. I mean, I was there for all of them, but not as early. So, yeah. So there's that aspect of, it is a beautiful, wonderful moment, like you were saying. And I think so often we forget to look for the beauty in things. And I love that that's one of the things you encourage in the book is those moments. And so can you share with people like, okay, so where do they start? So, oh, all right, I want to awaken wonder. I want to, inspire my kids. I want them to have a love for learning, but now what?
Well, I think that you have to throw away all the things that you thought you knew about education, because I think especially in America and many of the Western countries, when we think of education, we think of it as just opening a brain and seeing how many facts you can pour in there. And it's a multiple choice sort of fill in the blank education. Well, that isn't education. As a matter of fact, it never has been education. And as we look back through the centuries at great writers from Socrates, Plato, if you look at the C.S. Lewis, Tolkien model, all the different people, G.K. Chesterton, education was about shaping and forming the whole person. And so it was looking at them. Every person has a unique DNA. Every person has unique fingerprints and unique personality. And they were created to do something different. In the school model, you think everybody has to sit in a row. Please don't ask too many questions. You're disrupting the class. There's only one right answer. Whereas I wanted to look at my children. I was very bored in school, and I got in trouble for talking when I was younger. Imagine talking.
I know. A few of us had that issue.
I'm pretty sure I was the ADD person before my son Nathan, but I wanted people to stand back and say education is about forming a spiritual imagination. Who is this God who threw the stars into place? And the fact that he made atoms and butterflies and constellations. And I wanted my children to be in an environment where they could ask questions and ponder the deep thoughts of the universe. I wanted them to have a sense of virtue and moral value. I wanted them to know that there was right and wrong in the world, that it's a part that is written in the heart of every person. It's why we get insanely angry when someone runs a red light and hits our car, because we know that there's something inherently wrong about that. I wanted them to have a sense of the virtues, the goodness, the strength. I wanted them to understand they have capacity and they have choices to make. I wanted them to learn manners, to be able to really honor and respect every person who's ever been born as a human being with value. And so it's your emotions, your mind, your heart, your thought. And so to awaken a person's capacity to kind of look inside a little human being and see within their eyes this capacity to become, to create, to live a great life, to live a good story, to be a hero in their own tale, that's a whole different way of looking at a child. And you and I both know that home education has become big business. And so unfortunately, there are so many curriculums to buy and things to do, and people have the illusion that they're supposed to be busy all the time and fill in every blank. And that doesn't take into account that a child is motivated by love, by personal attention, by opportunities to engage in nature, in music, and art, in literature, and beauty. And so I'm kind of trying to cover a whole lot in a small bit of time. But I would like for people to think more world. What is beautiful, good, lovely, dimensional in your world? Because when you understand that that is what your children were created to become a part of, they will want to know and learn. It's a power to know. And you're going to be cooperating more with who they were actually made to be, a person to discover, to learn, to grow, to create, to engage. And when you seek to engage them by loving and affirming them, that's the starting point of all education.
I love that, because I get asked that more than anything else. What curriculum do you use? What curriculum do you use? And I'm like, I'm a hodgepodger. So we use some stuff and then we ditch some stuff. We start the year one way and we end the year another way. And so I'm always encouraging people. I'm like, if you are using curriculum, like, the power of the X is awesome. Like, cross things out. You are not required to do everything. You're never required to finish the book. If you find something your kids are interested in, rabbit trail with them, go down that hole and just enjoy it. And I loved you opened with a story that I was like, it was such a beautiful picture of what I feel like homeschool life has been like in many ways. And that, you know, you guys went out and watched the stars. I don't want to ruin it, but it is on the cover of the book. So, you know, so you went out and looked at the stars, and then it was just so powerful. And it was such a wonderful moment for your family that you did dive in and you learned more. And I wish that more parents would get that, like, because we're so programmed. Like, we were truly programmed to, I have had a child, now they're this age, so I give them to the professionals, but no one's going to love your kid as much as you're going to love your kid.
So true.
Yeah.
Well, another thing I realized as I'm writing this book and talking to my children, we did a conference series for people on the book, on the 12 chapters. And I said, so what did you all think? I didn't prep them. I didn't ask anything at all. But they said, you know, we felt like you were our adventure partner, so to speak. We would get up together and say, I wonder what we're going to discover today. But we never gave grades because we felt like grades were kind of made mostly to order a classroom, to compare who's doing well, who isn't.
Right.
We never did age graded. In other words, we didn't teach this at this age and that at that age. We collected great resources. And I read literally thousands of books to my kids. They did a math a year. And all of them, you know, now that they're in these very academic arenas and doing well, people said, was it always your goal to have them go to Oxford and Cambridge and St. Andrews? And I said, absolutely not. But it's like planting a garden. If you plant with great seed, and if you nurture it, water it, give it sunshine, protect it, it is made to grow. Mm-hmm. And so every single person who's born, who is crafted by the hands of God, has an incredible capacity to live into potential. Einstein thought that maybe we only used about 10% of our brain. So I thought, what if I could cultivate the kind of life that would be putting them in the good soil, nurturing them, watering them, and then letting them grow beyond anything I could have done. And they all have, they're a lot smarter than I am. They're much more motivated, and they had a much better start because they had me.
Oh, I love it. That's right, though. And, you know, it is funny, like when, it was a weird moment for me when I could tell that my older boys, because, you know, I felt like I was pretty strong for a long time. And like when I realized, no, they are much stronger than me. And my oldest, I always tease him. I'm like, you're such a better writer than I am. Yeah. I was even like, can you help the other kids? Because, like, I mean, I love writing, but I just do it. I don't know. He's very good at just, I don't know how he does it.
Great words. And that's the thing. Great literature makes great writers. Everybody said, your kids are all published authors, and what curriculum did you use? And I said, well, we literally picked the best books that we could find. And we read and read and read, and they narrated back. And that shaped them into amazing writers. But it was organic. It wasn't prescriptive.
I love that. Yeah, it's so cool. Now, like, I know when I was a younger mom, I could read a book like yours and think, okay, like, I feel like I kind of know where I'm going. And, you know, granted, in the midst of all the young moms out there are like, what? No, I'm drowning. But I know also in this stage of my life that I have these teenagers. I mean, my oldest graduated last year and, you know, is in, you know, the junior college realm and looking towards, like, you know, big fun things. In fact, when I told him I was going to be interviewing you, I'm like, her kids went to Oxford, and he's such a literary nut. He's just like, oh, England. But, you know, so what encouragement, so what encouragement do you have for those who maybe have like a middle school, high schooler and are starting at that stage and maybe feel like, I don't know, is it too late? You know, how can you encourage those of us who are kind of on that? I mean, I'm in all realms right now, but for those who are kind of over on that side.
Yeah, I think that, again, I really emphasize this in the book. The whole first third of the book is about the most important aspect of anybody who wants to educate children is your relationship with the children. Jesus said that a student will become like his master. And so I thought, oh, am I what I want my child to be like? So the first thing you need to know is that really opening up, if you possibly can at this point still, the relationship with your child. Spend time with them, stay up late, ask questions, bribe them with chocolate chip cookies, give them back rubs, tell me your secrets. Whatever you can do, just first of all to say, you know what, you are an interesting person to me. I like who you are. Speaking forward in their lives, I believe in the man, the woman you're going to become. So it starts out with relationship. That's what I'd really focus on, because I think what a lot of moms don't know, although maybe they know after this year, is they don't know how secular and difficult and challenging the world that they're sending their children into. And so I see the teenage years as years to, watch movies, maybe have a movie night every week and then discuss it afterwards. Have a pizza movie night, have your children's friends over. It can be during the week. It doesn't have to be on a Saturday. And we started an Inklings group when my kids were in, my younger kids were in high school. And we gave them a little feast every week. They were just by themselves, and they would talk about books, art, music, movies, and then they would come up with creative things. And some of them were musicians and so on. Make their lives interesting, and give them things to engage in. Let them be on a debate team. Let them be in a drama, in local drama in town. But give them a docent in a museum. That's what one of my kids was. But I think in the teenage years, what you're really doing is you're relaying. You've been giving them foundations their whole lives. You're reminding them, you are an amazing person. You have capacity. You have a moral foundation that I've been trying to build. You can be a hero in this very dark time. I believe forward in you. And then if they're musical, take them to a musical conference. If they're whatever they're interested in, medical, whatever, those are the years where you're looking at your child, thinking more about relationship, inspiration, giving them extra skills at what they're good at. And I think if you haven't established a really strong academic foundation, this is not the time to do it. This is the time more to mentor and disciple, and to relate and to believe in. And I had a son who moved to New York City to be in the New York Film Academy, which is a very secular place. And he said, Mom, he said, every place I went, I kept hearing all these voices in my head, all the scripture that we had to memorize, all the things right is right, even if no one is doing wrong, is always wrong, even if everyone's doing it. And he said, I think it was God, but it sounded a lot like you. And so I think, the time before our children leave home is the time to say, I love you no matter what. You can ask me anything. I will support you through everything. It's giving them a reason to stay faithful to the foundations and the values and the faith that you would like for them to hold fast their whole lives.
Yeah, oh no, it does. And I would say that has been the hardest part, because, like parenting, you kind of get into a rhythm, I feel like, but then you get into like even teen years. I didn't feel like that was hard. It is like that entering adulthood stage that has been like, woo, like this is a totally different stage of parenting I didn't know existed. Oh, yeah. And
a boy's brain doesn't close until he's 25.
Right. Don't tell them that.
I know. You have to understand that there's not always logic going on there. So you want to stay close so that they'll want to do what you want to help them move in the direction of. And you want them to tell you everything, even if it's not what you thought. And you also, I'm sorry, you're asking a question I was answering today.
Oh, no, go for it.
The goal isn't to control your children, because the more you press down, the more reaction you'll get. The goal is to love and motivate and win the heart of your children. So that they will at least consider wanting to hear your voice in whatever choices they're making.
I love that, because the world is throwing a lot of really horrible things at them. And as you are open, that's been, I think, the thing for us is that we're opening up, like giving them more freedoms. And, it's one of those things where like, you're testing the foundation that you've given them. And it's like, okay, we're we're gonna watch a movie. All right. Like, because it reaches a point
You
where
have
it's
to
like,
choose those movies.
I know. And so we try to be as careful as humanly possible. We use filters. We try to find good
things that are interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's powerful. But one of the things I love that you talk on it throughout, I noticed throughout the book, but especially at the beginning, is tech. In this day in life where, people have been thrown into homeschooling, we have a lot of things happening, times are overwhelming. It's really easy to just want to like hand tech to our kids, put on a movie, put on a show, and to do more than we normally would have. And can you kind of speak to that? Because I liked what you said in the book, and I really, I'm so passionate about this area, so I'd really love for you to articulate it.
Well, if you look at the secular world that's out there, all that is possible on the internet, from pornography to violence to everything, all that's happening, that we'll consider that an enemy. Okay, we'll consider that a demon or a dark side. You would never, if somebody rang your doorbell and said, "Hi, can I come in and molest your children's brains?" Or can I mess with them and can I addict them to something? Of course, we would say, "No, you can't come in. I'm protecting my children. I love them." But when we just give our children free access to the internet, there are things that are actually looking to attract our children that could be harmful for them. And I think the thing that I really feel the most sorry for moms for these days is that here we are in a very difficult time where most of what we are supposed to do with our kids takes a lot of time and takes our personal energy. In a world where they don't have support systems, they don't have their grandmas, their cousins, their aunts and uncles. Sometimes the church doesn't even have the values that they have. They're working all the time. They're working every day without a vacation, and they're still supposed to keep working. So it is a hard calling that we have as parents. Like, God has really entrusted us with this time with a lot. But I would say, if you can resist the temptation, even if if you can help protect your children from too much free time. Teenagers need friends. Have a lot of people over to your house, have game nights, have, whatever, hiking nights. I have all sorts of fun things we used to do. Or go camping with kids. Whatever you have to do to distract kids and make them love being together, give them a big project or whatever, because the more free time in their room when they're lonely and they don't have any friends and no activities to do, the more they're going to be longing for what they think they might find in that magical phone. And so it's hard, but you might be saving the future generations of your great and grandchildren when you help protect. You talk to your children, you give them strong foundations of what is acceptable in technology. You occupy their time, whether it's giving them jobs, opportunities, activities, whatever. You spend a lot of time with them. You have lots of kids in your home, more mess, more feeding, more things that you have to do. Engage them in it, though. You want to be the person that those peers, those friends of your children are going to trust. I remember one night we were speaking at a conference, and one of my kids called me and they said, "Mom, we found out that somebody is OD'd on drugs, and they're just going to leave him alone, and I'm afraid he might die or something, but they listen to you. Would you get on the phone?" This is us in another city. "Would you get on the phone? Because they all trust you, because they know that you won't, that you have things to say to them." And I thought, oh, it's 2:00 in the middle of the night and I'm exhausted, but I'm glad you called us. And so I will say, this is a war. We are warring for the consciences, the lives, the souls, the minds, the future of our children. And it is hard. Try to find a friend that can walk along with you. Try to find other support systems of people who believe like you do, but know that you matter so much. You precious moms who haven't slept in years, you older moms of teenagers who are so hormonal and tired of your children, stay up late. One more time. They'll tell you the secret you've been wanting to hear. It is hard, and that's why I wish I could just spoil you all. But the calling that you have to civilize the next generation is quite profoundly significant and important. and do what the most important thing is, that you keep refueled and re-envisioned. And that's what I wrote Awakening Wonder for, is that I really wanted women to kind of stand back and say, my life matters. I don't have to get every math problem done. I am shaping legacies by what I'm doing in my home. And so that's kind of why I wanted to focus on what really mattered.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. And what I want to make sure that everyone who's listening, because I know they're going to be like, yes, I need the book, but you have other resources as well. So not just Awakening Wonder, you have a workbook that goes with it as well. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. It's a planner. Awakening Wonder. Yep.
Okay. And then where can people find more information? Because, I know that we can probably find I always ask authors, like, so where can, everybody get your book? And I'm like, everywhere books are sold. I know your answers. But, where can people be connecting with you more and get more of your resources?
Several places. One, I do a podcast called, I have so many Sally things that my assistants made me call them.
At Home with Sally. I'll help you.
And Home with Sally is my podcast. Can you tell I'm still a little jet lagged? And I do that. I have a lot of podcasts done with 400 or 500. And then I have a membership called Life with Sally. Yes. And what we were trying to do, I have this team of 12 women, and they have put together recipes, reading, discipleship, my old talks. I do several talks a month. I do, all sorts of stuff there. That is a membership that you pay for so that I can pay all my staff, and they put it together beautifully. I have a blog at sallyclarkson.com, and there's a lot of videos, resources. I've written 22 books, some online. I don't know, just Sally Clarkson, and you will find
Go
me.
there. That's right. I didn't even know about the Life with Sally membership thing until this morning. I was looking up on your site and I was like, oh, that's brilliant. So I love it.
I have all these very talented friends, and
yes, you do.
All of these beautiful, books, ideas, musicians, Awakening Wonder, unit studies, recipes. They're just amazing. And they came to me a few years ago and said, we need to put all of your old material in a place where people can get it 1 month at a time and really be exposed to it, and we'll add to it. So I can't say it's about me. I can say that they are the most talented women in the world, and it's really a fun place.
I love it. That is so cool. Now I was watching your little intro and I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. So we will put all the links in the show notes and everything. So thank you so much, Sally, for coming and being a part of my podcast, number 100, which now it sounds like that's just like piddlywinks. You've had like 500, 600 episodes.
But I've been doing it, and I had to do a whole bunch at a time. And so I just mean, if you need a few things to listen to, you can do that. But listen here first. I love what you're doing, Kristi. This is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Well, what a joy to officially get to connect more instead of like in the hustle and bustle of, conferences and online world. So thank you so much. It's been a joy to have you.
Thank you. The Lord bless you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Simply Joyful Podcast. Be sure to check out all the episodes available by going to simplyjoyfulpodcast.com. Also, be sure to subscribe here on YouTube so you don't miss all of the other videos that we have coming your way. Have a great rest of your week, and don't forget to live simply and be joyful.